lights are out and you stumble in the dark. You kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds. And when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me.
Today marks the dawning of a new as we begin the second half of the season. And for the first time since Season 3, it will be right here at the Phoenix Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona for the Sim Motion 200 here for Sim Racer's Edge. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. Greg McConey will be joining me in the not-so-distant future here as we get set to kick off the second half of the season here at Phoenix Raceway. A lot of great racing. It took place last week at Atlanta. A great run on the old surface of the racetrack last week after they tried their best to get it to run on the new surface. Unfortunately, did not work out, but we still got a classic race at Atlanta regardless. And now we are here for the very first time on the new layout for Phoenix Raceway. The previous two times we have raced here was back in Season 1 and in Season 3. Nate Siefker winning the first race here, Chris Samard winning the second race here in Season 3. Both of these were on an older iteration of this racetrack with the start-finish line on the straightaway as it had been for so many years. But again, for the first time, we are here at the new Phoenix Raceway as we will take a look at the point standings coming into this race. Right now, Chad Simpson, after his third win of the season, currently holds a pretty nice size points lead, a good 23-point gap over Butch Davis. Bentley Glazer there as well. Nate Siefker, after a poor result at Atlanta last week, running in fourth place in standings. Dan Brazington up there very close to him in the top 5 as we look through the remainder of the 35 drivers that have taken part in a race thus far this season. And looking through as well, first half of the season has been quite a fun ride. First of all, the return for us here at Sim Racing Media with Sim Racer's Edge. Boy, they have put on one heck of a show as this return season has gone through. As we're now showing you the team point standings going into this race. As I think I hear my broadcast partner now, Greg. Beginning of the second half of the season, we've seen 3 different unique winners. Chad Simpson's won 3, Nate Siefker has won 3, Butch Davis, the winner of the one race at Charlotte. There's a lot more diversity in the tracks as far as the second half of this season goes. Should be a very fun race, a season to watch unfold as we enter the second half.
Oh, absolutely, Frank. And we've had 2 super close finishes already this year. We've got a bunch of upcoming tracks where possibilities are still there for that. This league has been so much fun to watch. You know, as I'm sure you said, I missed last week. Sadly, I had some SRM commitments that I need to go take care of.
Sadly, I had to take a vacation to Florida to go to a bunch of races. So yeah, we're crying for you over here.
I worked at least. No, but it talked about the race last week. These guys put on a heck of a show. And like you said, Chad Simpson got win number 3 on the season so far. That is really kind of tightening that battle between Simpson and Siefker, who isn't here tonight.
Siefker has not showed up as of right now, so he, at least for the moment, is not going to be eligible to get his second win at the track, because we're about 5 seconds away from going into the qualifying session. And during the warm-up session, we'll go a little bit further in. 21 drivers set to qualify here as of this moment for this race, as the session has now officially switched on over. We will take a look and see who will be the first to jump out onto the racetrack. It would appear as though we've got a couple of cars lining up on pit road, but it'll be the Season 3 winner here at Phoenix. Chris Simard will be the first one to jump out on track.
Yeah, Simard out there now coming through what is... See, for those that don't know, right now we are running 2 configuration of... Did you already talk on this?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Now I'll quit talking.
So what was 3 and 4, which is where Chris Simard is now turns 1 and 2. And what used to be the bank turns 1 and 2 are now the bank's turns 3 and 4.
Yes. And having driven this a lot, it is a very interesting change to the layout. But it makes the racing better. I fully agree with cars change track. Moving the start-finish line from the straight section of it now into the short dogleg section. I love it. And we're going to see guys tonight diving down onto that apron. Qualifying, you're not going to see it as much because it really does upset the car. But you'll definitely see guys, especially restarts, they are going to hook that car left, dive as far as they can down that apron, as Simard does have the fastest time at a 19.55, followed closely by Ronnie Osmer at a 19.78 as he is on his final lap here.
Jake Walsh now jumping up into second on what will be the first of 3 qualifying laps.
Make that Connor Nixon, Timothy Bates, Ronnie Osmer back up at a 19.60.
Again, having some overlay issues. Osmer up to second. Jake Walsh will go 5th quickest on his qualifying time. Chris Walker currently 6th quickest on his final lap now. And that is one thing to note, Greg. You had mentioned it, and I know you weren't here for the first two times they ran here. The first two races in season 1 and season 3, you were not allowed to cut the dog leg. They had the no cut layout of this racetrack up and available, or up and in use for this series. This is the first time that we are going to see you actually be able to cut the dog leg here in this series, as we see Lyle Swearingen complete his 2nd lap.
No, I was just going to say, I with that old configuration, I the Cup cars, I think you need to have that dog leg in effect. But now with this new layout, it makes the advantage of the dog leg, I'll say, isn't as great when it comes to restart, because everybody's not up to now. With this being file restarts, that's going to change that fact, where you're definitely going to have guys coming back, unlike on, like we saw a couple weeks at Interlagos. There is no push to pass here, so guys aren't able to back way up the corner and go charging in and use push to pass on a restart to dive it down low to really cut this track off. But like you said, I mean, if it just all depends on the layout of this track and what you want to do with that dog leg. Some people like it. Myself, I love using the dog leg when it comes to racing here at Phoenix. Other guys can't stand it. They hate it. They don't get used to it, whatever it may be. As Butch Davis has now put up the fastest time in qualifying at a 19.45 as he takes it down onto pit road. And lastly, it looks like Joe Brickey is out right now.
Brickey just completed his 2nd lap, and that will... Oh, no, never mind. We still got about 30 seconds or so. Overlay still having some issues here. Joe Brickey currently running at 14th on that 1st lap. He was in the top 10 in practice, and he will do no better than 12th here in this qualifying session. And how they lie right now is how they will lie for the race. As we have 10 seconds left here in this qualifying session, Butch Davis takes the pole in another dominating performance thus far from FBR Motorsports. Davis, Swearingen, Simpson, your top 3 in qualifying as we get into this warm-up session here. And again, this is the first time they're running this, and we'd already hit on the first time that they're going to be able to cut the dog leg. Cutting the dog leg comes with its own risks and challenges. It's not just wrecking guys trying to get back onto the racetrack after you've already cut it. It's actually getting off the racetrack and cutting the dog leg that can be the most difficult part. Getting off of that high banking onto the flat is a lot harder to do than going to the flat and going to that medium banking.
Absolutely, because especially in the NASCAR cars, and you're going to see it here tonight, you're going to bottom out if you don't do it carefully. So when you do bottom out like that, come down onto that flat, it upsets the car so much. Now tonight, they're going to be running this race fully in the day. But for those that do watch the NASCAR series, they go to Phoenix in 2 weeks. Especially once it goes tonight, watch how much those cars bottom out and all the sparks that you're going to see as those guys throw those cars down onto that bank. And like you said, it's easier to go from the flat to the banking than it is to go from the banking to the flat, because when you go up, you're using that grip of the bank, I guess is a way to put it. It's you're putting more resistance into the car as you go up than when you're coming down and taking all the resistance out of the tires as you go onto that flat. So not only that, but Frank, you also got to think that also does damage the tire. Yep, it does wear that right front more.
we're highlighting Mark McFadden here for just a moment. For those of you, I know most of you are not in our not in the series Discord. Mark McFadden is racing with a little bit of a handicap here tonight. He has a brand new, I guess you could say, cast or a splint on his left hand, so downshifting for him is going to be nigh on impossible. He had a procedure done on his pinky that is still in the process of healing. I'm sure some of you doctors in the chat will know how to pronounce this. Dupuytren's contracture, otherwise known as Viking's disease.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hemp.
Yeah, it's
actual terminology.
Yeah,
I like Viking disease better.
Yeah, Viking disease doesn't explain it at all, but it's a heck of a lot easier to say. So he is going to be racing pretty much sans left hand tonight. Will that number 5 of Mark McFadden, and apparently has been racing with that for the last couple of weeks and still managed to come home with a pretty solid finish at Atlanta last week, which would also explain why he was not at Interlagos 2 weeks ago.
Yes, it would. No, but Mark's a fighter. He's the oldest guy that I've seen on iRacing out here with these young guns, and we've talked about it before. I race with him tomorrow night, actually. iRacing E-Series.
Actually, I don't think so, because I think he has a majors race, he said, tomorrow night.
Oh well. I normally race Mark on Friday night. But no, he's a heck of a he's a fighter. He's a guy that won't back down no matter what you throw his way. So this little hand injury of his, he'll fight through it like a champ.
Absolutely will. As we head to the final 30 seconds or so of this session, Chad Simpson on track right now, your current points leader, currently sitting second on the timing and scoring pylon. Lyle Swearingen sits at the top. Chris Walker just behind Chad Simpson, not just on track, but also on the time sheet, currently third quickest at this point. Just to show you how quick these guys are getting around this racetrack, in the 5 minutes that these guys were given, Chad Simpson has put down 13 laps.
Yeah, we're going to fly through.
Yep. 200 laps may seem like a lot, but when you're getting through 14 laps in 5 minutes, that's, as one Larry David would say, pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing to remember with all of it, there's going to be a lot of tire fall off.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys are really going to have to be careful, really be cautious of that right front tire of theirs, because as this run goes on, we've seen several second worth of fall off. I'm trying to grab the notes that we had pre-race.
And while you're looking for that, we will go now to the grid here for tonight's race. Butch Davis with a time of 19.453. Snatches pole away from Lyle Swearingen, less than exactly a half a tenth slower than Davis. That will be row number 1. Row 2 will go to Chad Simpson and Chris Simard. Ronnie Osmer and Dan Brazington will make up row 3. Row 4 goes to Tim Bates and Connor Nixon. Chris Walker and Jake Walsh will round out row number 5, with Scott Rankin and Joe Brickey rounding out the top half of the field.
Yeah, starting tonight in 13, we've got Jeffrey Roulette and Dan Inch on his outside. Ernie Ludwig and Paul Cremery make up row 8. Timothy Emmanuel. And otherwise, my stuff all messed up now.
Bentley Glazer rounding out row number 9. Mark McFadden and Kevin O'Brien round out row 10. Carl Burke will start in the 21st position. Glazer, McFadden, O'Brien, and Burke did not set a qualifying time and will line up via their iRating. Pace car already off really quick. It's 1:15 p.m. in sim time. 84-degree ambient temperature, 121-degree track temperature, Greg, as we get set to go here at Phoenix.
Yeah, now the interesting thing to remember here at Phoenix, it is a long wait. Once that pace car pulls off, you've got to maintain pace speed all the way down the backstretch into 3 out of 4. As they wait on this green flag, Butch Davis is going to lead them to the line here for Phoenix. 200 laps tonight, folks. And look at everybody already diving down onto that apron, trying to gain as many spots as they can.
Ronnie Osmer immediately jumps to the bottom, gets a couple of spots there, got one off of Chris Simard, still trying to work on Chad Simpson. This is going to be a multi-groove racetrack here tonight. Inside will work. The outside will also definitely work around here, especially in turns 1 and 2 with how flat it is.
Absolutely. And I'm a fan early on in this race of that outside line in 1 and 2. You're going to want to really dive to the bottom like you see Butch doing now in 3 and 4. But that outside line in 1 and 2, you're just able to carry so much more speed with how flat it is. You're able to really get a good run off the corner. That's why I'm loving right where Lyle's at. It saves a little bit of tire life when you coast that corner entry a little bit more. So I'm really going to be looking at Lyle to really show his pace later on. As you look at these two, have already pulled out to over a second ahead of third-place driver Chad Simpson.
Midfield is where the battle's getting nice and hot. Jake Walsh on the bottom in that black and yellow number 33. That's Connor Nixon in the mostly white with purple accented number 96. The purple and white car down there with the red number, that is the 21 of Timothy Bates. Currently running in the 11th position now is Scott Rankin, who came home in a podium position. Jumps up into the top 10 for the first time tonight.
Yeah, we're seeing these guys really kind of start to single file themselves out here. From, you've seen the dog leg. We see a big battle there. It looks Roulette. Nope, not Roulette. Right behind him, Dan Inch and Timothy Emmanuel. Dan really trying to dive that onto the apron there. So you're really seeing these guys start to back it up, and you're seeing them go into tire save mode. Most of them, I'll say. Up front, looks like Chad Simpson and Chris Simard decided they don't want to save any bit. They're going full bore right now early on in this race, because the other advantage that these Delaras have versus the other Cup cars, let's say, and we've talked on it, we talk about it every race, but you have in-car adjustment. You can adjust the ballast, adjust the front and rear wing trim in the car. So it allows you to tire handling of your car all throughout a run.
Chris Walker and Connor Nixon battling each other. Nixon in 8th, Chris Walker in 9th. Looking to move their way up. Jake Walsh, guy who was very quick during the practice session, sitting a little bit ahead of them right now, about a second off of Dan Brazenton in front, but that 33 is going to be one to watch here tonight with how good he was doing during that practice session, as Connor Nixon defending on the outside from Chris Walker. That's allowing Scott Rankin right up into the battle.
Yeah, we're really seeing these guys kind of back in that 4th, 5th position right now, really slugging it out. Oh boy, now I'm having tech issues. I'm good though.
Chris Simard falling back into the clutches of Ronnie Osmer. Simard in the yellow and black, number 77. Osmer takes a dive down to the bottom in that powder blue, number 55.
Yeah, the best way that Osmer is going to make that pass on the bottom there is he's going to do the slide job. That's, if you're going to make that pass in 1 and 2 off that low lane, you really need to dive that car deep and slide it up into that outside lane in front of Simard. But in these cars, it's such a risky move. That unlike the other Cup cars or trucks or anything like that, if you slide this car up into the wall, it is very easy to get suspension damage and end your night.
Third, 4th, and 5th on your screen right now. Chad Simpson, Chris Simard, Ronnie Osmer. About 1 second ahead of Dan Brazington, occupying the 6th position. Brazington running all by his lonesome. Jake Walsh, second in front, a second behind. Connor Nixon has escaped the clutches of Chris Walker for the moment. A little bit further behind, that's Dan Inch in the 52. Battling with Joe Brickey in the 10 to his outside. Kevin O'Brien in the blue and white number 84 there as well. Bentley Glazer and Paul Crumry also battling side by side. Crumry in the 15.
Yeah, Glazer and Crumry were side by side going into 3. As it looks right now that Joe Brickey's trying to make that slide job happen on Tim. Not going to complete it. Not able to slide up in front of Dan Inch either. So that's going to be a tough one for him. If you're caught on that bottom lane coming out of turn 2, you lose so much speed.
On board with Dan Inch as Joe Brickey and Kevin O'Brien both go by. You're about to see Bentley Glazer go by on the inside. There he is. Things happen in a hurry here at such a short track with how fast these guys are going. I'm sure this racetrack was not built with cars going 200 miles an hour down the front straightaway in mind, or what used to be the front straightaway.
Yeah, no, not at a short track like this. I mean, you talk about how fast they're turning laps here. We're already on lap 19 of 200. These guys are turning, the leaders right now are just turning a sub 20-second lap. I'm talking a 19.9, 19.98, as both of them have now hit 20-second laps. You're going 20 seconds around the place. It's nuts.
Ronnie Osmer just did slide up in front of Chris Simard there, using that shortcut to his advantage. And Osmer in the 55 goes from P5 to P4. Further behind, that is Tim Bates on the inside of Jeffrey Roulette in the 66.
Yeah, you're seeing these guys really, once they come back onto the track, we talk about how loose it is. These cars are built for banking, or the setup is built for banking, say. So when you're down on that apron, the car is not meant to handle it, so you get loose. And you see these guys, when they come back up onto that banking, those rear ends want to snap around on them. And these guys are doing a great job keeping that under control. As right now, it looks like one of the closest battles is between Walker and Rankin right now.
Chris Walker with the green TV pod on that car. Scott Rankin in the white.
And you're... Go ahead.
We're working lap 24 of this race, and we'd like to thank all of you who are joining us on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Facebook as well. We appreciate the kind words, especially. Also appreciate you guys getting involved in the chat. We love seeing you guys interacting in the chat. And we appreciate you doing so for as often as you do. Scott Rankin with a connection issue there, which is why the camera had a moment.
Gotta love it whenever we have camera issues. If we don't have enough stuff that we worry about.
Timothy Emmanuel currently running in the 14th position. Kevin O'Brien starting to chase him down. Both of those guys have moved up quite a bit. Your two biggest movers, one of them is Kevin Bryan in the 84. Bentley Glazer going past Tim Bates in the 21. That 4 is now +6 on the day. Compare that to his teammate Tim Bates, who's now -6 from the start of this race.
Yeah, he's really kind of hugging that low line. I've been watching him through 1 and 2 the last few laps. There's nothing wrong with that, but he's just not able to carry the speed that some of those other guys are carrying around that top side. And what I'm afraid is that it's because he's burned that right front too much. As you see right now, he's really kind of holding that bottom and really having to, really drifting up the track there, almost catching the wall.
It's a nudge of
He
the
got so
wall there
close.
by Chris Walker. Scott Rankin now just able to get by. Ronnie Osmer is down pit road.
Yeah, I'm taking a look, trying to see if there's any damage on that car. I don't think there is. So he could be pulling, the short pit strategy, which isn't a bad one. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is you're going to go, oh man, in NASCAR you're going about 2 laps down. Yeah, I'm going to say closer to 3 laps down through this. So what you're doing is you're hoping you're drawing more guys to make the same pit strategy as you, as looks like he's disconnected.
Wow. So
it looks like Ronnie's disconnected.
Ronnie Osmer pulls off and is done after, 30 laps?
Yeah.
From P4.
Interesting.
Would have to assume there's a personal issue involved there.
Yeah, something or some other plan for tonight.
As we see Ernie Ludwig getting lapped as the top two. Butch Davis in the 43, Lyle Swearingen in the 86 have caught up to lap cars. Dan Inch is going to be the next car up to be lapped. Joe Brickey in the 10 there as well.
Yeah, lap cars are going to be tough here, especially when most of them are running that line that Butch Davis wants up on that high side, and they're not required to move. So it's a courtesy, but you're not required to move at the first car going a lap down.
Here is Butch Davis going around Dan Inch to put him a lap down. Lyle Swearingen forced to go around the inside. So we have our first DNF of the night. That would be Ronnie Osmer. Only 20 cars took to green. Carl Burke did not start this race tonight, so he will classify as a did not start.
Yeah, the rest of these guys are doing a heck of a job right now with the pace of this field. Everybody's still sitting. Your top half are all running 20.5s or less. Some of the guys that are towards the back right now, that was a big move out of Swearingen. Sitting around the 21-second mark. So most of these guys still holding close to each other time-wise, which is good to see at a track like this.
Now, of the 2 races that have been run here, this is the one with the lowest turnout of the 3, as we see Paul Crumry still battling with Kevin O'Brien. Scott Rankin and Connor Nixon now going side by side for 7th. Rankin will take the spot. This is the race with the lowest turnout. The first time we came here back in season 1 had 27 drivers participate, and that was won by Nate Siefker. Took pole and won, leading 77 laps of the race. The race in season 3 only had 22, so with 21 tonight, the lowest, but still right on par with where this series has been. Again, Chris Samard taking the win, leading 88 laps of that 186 lap event. I would have to assume that there was a green white checkered in there somewhere at 186.
Yeah, and while all this has been going on, I've kind of kept an eye on Swearingen and Butch Davis, and Lyle has just had the worst luck catching lap traffic. Coming in, he was about half a second to a second behind Butch Davis. That gap is now 4 seconds. And that's simply because of lap cars. Nothing the lap cars have done wrong. Lyle has just caught them at inopportune times to make the pass, where Butch has been a little more advantageous because of it.
Naturally, being the leader, they tend to get out of the way of you. Second place is not so important, as Swearingen is finding out.
Yeah, as right now, Chad Simpson really closed the gap. He's about half a second back on Swearingen, closing quick. So perhaps not just lap traffic, but Lyle may have put a little bit too much heat into that right front tire, where he's not getting the grip that he wants anymore. And guys that we saw, like Chad Simpson, taking it a little bit easier on the start, they've still got some tire left.
I must say, as we ride on board, the wing cam is quite nice here on this car, but the roll bar camera showing the top of what is a double cheeseburger helmet that Chad Simpson has is absolutely fantastic.
I need to look at this.
We'll get a better view of it right here, hopefully, as he goes to the inside of Lyle Swearingen. That is Chad Simpson up into the second position.
I love that helmet. That's an awesome helmet.
Take a look back at him. There it is. There's the helmet.
And while all that's going on, Chris Walker is coming to the pits. And I thought I just heard somebody else saying they were coming into the pits as well. Scott Rankin.
Scott Rankin coming in. Chris Walker has come in. Now the expected pit distance here, the fuel run distance, would have been between 45 and 50 laps. So we are within the pit window here.
We are, and right now Lyle has fallen back to third, and he's fighting Chris Amard for that fourth place spot.
Now
Swearingen right now struggling.
Now we
holding
say
that car
40,
on the outside.
Now we say 45 to 50 laps. That's for everybody else. For Chad Simpson, that's about 55 to 60 from what we have seen from him this season.
I'm expecting Simpson to figure out a way to two-stop. How he's going to do it, I've got no idea, but he'll figure a way.
It's Connor Nixon who has come down pit road now, surrendering a top 5 spot. Dan Brazington starting to come under fire from Jake Walsh, as Lyle Swearingen still not finding any luck once this car has gotten into traffic. He has gotten passed up by Chris Simard. He has now lost 2 full seconds to Chris Simard. That, you would have to say it's a setup issue, but all of these guys are running the same setup here tonight. That's an in-car adjustment issue. If he's losing this much time, he has lost 9 seconds to the race lead since jumping into traffic.
Oh, I fully agree. That's an adjustment thing right now, more than just a lap traffic kind of issue. As we now see Simard, Glazer, Roulette, Crumry? Sorry about that, Paul. Crumry now all on pit road. We talked before about that dog leg and cutting that dog leg. What we didn't mention, as Lyle Swearingen comes onto pit road along with Chris Simard,
Tim Bates following,
is that you exit pit road, you're on that apron.
Mm-hmm.
And you are coming out past start finish. So these guys, as Butch Davis and Chad Simpson also join them, you have to be so cautious that you're not coming into a side-by-side battle where somebody's diving onto the apron. Because it's real easy to have that happen and get yourself caught up in somebody else's trouble.
Paul Crumry must have had a speeding on exit penalty or an unsafe exit penalty, because he is back down pit road. That leaves the lead with this man, Timothy Emmanuel, who is now coming down pit road.
And now you see where those yellow cones are right there. That's the start of pit road. It's not the yellow barrels, it's those little yellow cones. So guys are really diving it deep there. See Ernie Ludwig come out up front.
Ernie Ludwig and Dan Inch have both not come into pit yet, so these are 1 and 2 on the racetrack right now. But boy, there is a lot of cars in front of them. Tim Bates, Jeffrey Roulette, Jake Walsh, all right here. Joe Brickey.
Dan's now come on to pit road. Ernie's still out there turning laps. He's crossing the line now. Butch Davis just entered turn 3. So that shows you where they are gap-wise, about 6 seconds. And right now, Butch Davis is running about a second quicker than Ernie is a lap.
Chad Simpson right now battling with Chris Simard. This would be for effective 3rd position, as Scott Rankin has jumped these two. Now, part of the reason why Scott Rankin has jumped these two is because he came in back on lap 45. And once Ernie Ludwig comes in, which he has shown little signs of doing right now, I think maybe with this low turn, this might be his signal that he's coming in. He still has about 4.5 seconds back to Butch Davis. As
Yep,
here
he's coming
comes
in this
Ludwig
time.
now.
No, but Rankin did the undercut, and he performed it perfectly. He had a quick pit stop, only at an 8.7 second in his stall, while everybody else was at the, well, let's see, Butch Davis total time on pit road 48.8, 48.13 for Chad Simpson, Samard at a 48.5, Scott Rankin a 46.65.
That's
2 seconds less in his stall, or 2 seconds less from cone to.
Yeah, that's a very good pit entry is what that would be. Is we see the position that the top 5 drivers all came into pit on, or what lap they all came into pit on, pardon me. Lap 45 for Scott Rankin, lap 46 for Connor Nixon, and as Greg was mentioning, the time from cone to cone, Scott Rankin the quickest of those guys. Nixon only 0.3 of a second slower, but all the other drivers around him in the 48s. As we're seeing the second place battle take place, we will step aside and take a quick break. You are watching the Sim Motion 200, round number 8 of the Sim Racer's Edge Season 5 here on SRM.
Are you struggling to keep up with the top drivers? Are you ready to get faster and more consistent? If so, it doesn't have to take as long as you might think. With the VRS competitive subscription, you'll have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything you need to analyze your driving and see exactly where you're losing time. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off your lap times. When it comes to your equipment holding you back, the powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the best drivers in the world, including Jordan Caruso, Tim Ryan, Jordi Lopez, and Oscar Piastri. It's no secret that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also the best value for money. So if you're looking to upgrade your wheelbase to direct drive and want highly adjustable, ultra-realistic pedals, VRS is your answer. You can get better, faster, and more consistent in less time and for less money. You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. Just go to the URL or the button below and learn why the best use VRS. To win in sim racing, you have to know when to send it. So pay attention. This means it's time for everyone to send it. This flag means someone sent it too hard and now we all have to slow down. This means someone sent it so hard we all have to go back to the pits and wait for the track to be cleared. And we don't get to send it again until we see this flag. This flag means you haven't been sending it hard enough and now need to get out of the way. When you see this flag, it's your last chance to send it. And when you see this flag, if you sent it the best, you get to do this. And remember, if you're gonna send it the best with VRS.
Working lap 71 of 200. As you see, second, third, and fourth starting to get into lap traffic here. Butch Davis currently holds a 4.5-second lead over the rest of the field, about halfway through this tire run, and the caution has yet to come out here.
Why would
at
you say
Phoenix.
it? Why would you say it, buddy?
Because it's got to happen anyway. You may as well say it.
Yeah, it's going to happen now that you said it.
So right now, Butch Davis, Scott Rankin, Chad Simpson, Chris Simard, and Connor Nixon, who is stuck in this scrum of lap cars here. As we get back to racing, working lap 75 of 200. Greg, we were talking about how quick this race was going to go and how long 200 laps seems. Yeah, we are 25 and a half minutes official race time into this race.
That's remarkable. I'm still. We talked about it during the commercial break. I'm still in shock with how fast it's going right now. Knock on wood that we keep this thing green, Frank.
Well,
this is a good race.
Hey, listen.
And now my dog's barking.
This is a very, this is a very welcome change for me after the Svenska race this morning. 27 cautions in 3 hours at Martinsville.
Oh.
I will welcome 20. I will welcome 76 laps in 26 minutes.
that shows. Well, that's Martin. Martinsville is a very difficult.
Yes.
If you get more than a 50-lap green flag run at Martinsville, I applaud you.
Yeah, no, we did not.
If you get 20,
that one we got
20 on iRacing, I'll say is not bad. That's not bad at all.
Definitely go back and take a look at the Svenska E-Racing League race here from earlier today at Martinsville. 250 laps, a full field of 40.
Ooh.
Here today. It was quite quite the spectacle of a night as we see Timothy Emmanuel battling with Lyle Swearingen. Now Swearingen, we saw him earlier on running in second right on the back wing of Butch Davis. After they got into lap traffic, Butch Davis went off and left Swearingen. We thought maybe that was solely because of lap traffic. However, Swearingen fell all the way back to fifth and lost 10 seconds to the race lead. He is now down in 11th position, running consistently about 2.5 to 3 tenths off the race lead, and is now the first car not on the lead lap.
Yeah, that like we talked about before break, that seems like more of an adjustment thing that Lyle's got in that car. That just for whatever reason, him and this car do not want to get along.
Which is interesting because at the beginning of this race, he was doing so well, qualified in second, almost sat on the pole. As Timothy Emmanuel gets by and now starts to gap him, which would leave the closest battle on track just behind them is Chris Simard still will not.
Tim just had a miraculous save coming out of turn 2. I saw smoke. I saw smoke and I thought he lost it. He locked those tires up, snapped that car back around. That was remarkable.
Timothy Emmanuel would be who he's referring to. As we see, here's the pass. Now we're going to be sitting here a minute for this because it happens a lap later. Emmanuel looking fine there. Slides up in front. Paul Crumry comes down pit road. Mark McFadden also. Pardon me, that's those guys cutting the chicane. The chicane, cutting the dog leg. Pardon me. Comes through turn 2. Whoa, big slide, big save. You're right. Nicely done.
That was beautiful car control there by that 39 car. But yeah, Lyle he seems to have an issue. But like we talked before, Frank, he was running in second place right behind Butch Davis. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he started falling back in lap traffic, Ooh, as he snaps the car there. He's just had so many issues, and that's the effect of aero on these cars and what it does for you. You know, if you don't stay on top of those car adjustments, as we see him now getting passed by the leader, Butch Davis.
Oh, that was Chad Simpson.
Oh,
He just
I
got
lied.
passed
That
by.
was
Who Chris Simard has finally gotten around, by the way, after working on him this entire pit stint. Chris Simard has finally gotten around Chad Simpson.
Yeah. No, if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to be in for a long night. Like you see here with Tim, and he doesn't have the car set to his liking. Not Tim, Lyle. He doesn't have the car set to his liking in the pack. In clean air, we've seen how fast he is. So we know Lyle has speed. It's just the setup right now does not agree with him in the draft.
Riding on board with Bentley Glazer as he gets around Connor Nixon. That would be for 5th. Bentley Glazer did not qualify, now plus 13 on the afternoon thus far. Biggest mover, second biggest mover of the race would be Scott Rankin. Up 9 positions from where he started.
Yeah, he's doing well. Lyle, sadly, one of the bigger losers tonight. He's down 10, sitting in 12th place currently. The biggest faller tonight is Tim Bates, down 11 positions, sitting in 18th. Same thing, just had speed early on. But once he kind of got into the pack, he's having a little bit of trouble negotiating his way through and figuring out the setup adjustment on that car. But he's doing well, and it looks like Chris Walker, first one to bite for a second time.
Tim Bates coming in right behind him.
Yep. Walker pitted last time on 45. Now comes in on lap 92. Which
is interesting because Scott Rankin came in on lap 45 as well last time around.
Yeah, I think I like what Rankin did, because what Rankin focused on was getting himself, because knowing when you're in clean air, you save tire better. That's how it is in any. When you're able to get yourself in clean air, you do so much more to preserve tires. Yet, and which is why he pitted early. By him pitting on 45, knowing he's going to have a pace advantage on new tires, I think Scott Rankin performed one of the best short pits that we've seen so far tonight, because he got himself into second place ahead of Simard and Simpson, and he's gapped both of them.
Scott Rankin, this
now
season,
comes to pit road.
Yep, here he comes now. Scott Rankin has participated in 3 races this season: Charlotte, Interlagos, and Atlanta. Finished 17th at Charlotte in his debut, 4th at Interlagos, and 3rd at Atlanta last week. So after a little bit of a shaky start in the first race of the season, that 56 has been on fire here and has been moving up one step every single race thus far, as Butch Davis now leading this race again uncontested, 4 3/4 seconds ahead of Chris Simard, who has up and left Chad Simpson. Simpson now 4 seconds behind Chris Simard, and Bentley Glazer is not that far off as Connor Nixon in the 96 peels it down pit road.
And the reason Simpson's fallen back is the reason that Lyle fell back before is lap traffic. Lap traffic has just been battling themselves, nothing wrong. Lap traffic hasn't done anything wrong. They're in a fight amongst themselves. And they don't necessarily have to yield the position. If Connor Nixon's on pit road as well, they don't have to yield, and Simpson's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time trying to get around them. And that's what's allowed Simard to really stretch that gap out now to almost 4 seconds himself over Chad Simpson, and really has brought Bentley Glazer back in within a second.
Bentley Glazer now hung up behind Chris Walker. Walker, currently running in the 15th position, has come into pit for a second time. He came into pit on lap 91. So working with fresher tires is that 23. going up against the points leader right now, Chad Simpson, and around the outside he goes. I think that's probably the best representation of what fresh tires can do for you, as here comes the 66 of Jeffrey Roulette down pit road.
Samar is going to follow him well. Both those guys trying to take advantage of new tires, both coming in around lap 52 last time, coming in 50 laps later this time. Even just 2 laps, like we said, you gain about a second a lap of fall off here, which is less than I thought they were going to see. Bentley Glazer in as well now. I thought these guys were going to be seeing closer to 2 to 3 seconds of fall off, but they're holding pretty steady at about a second.
The admins who work on the setups here in this series do an absolutely fantastic job of allowing these guys to get in a car and race it, not just drive it by itself, but race it as well. As here comes Jake Walsh into pit road from third in the number 33. See a lot of competitive races here in this series, and again, this is an open fixed set, and the reason why we call it an open fixed set, if you're new to the series, is Butch Davis very clearly coming down pit road now. The reason why we call it an open fixed set is because it is a custom setup, but everyone uses it. Everyone has the same custom setup. Chad Simpson follows in, so that is how we get the term an open fixed setup.
Looking at the chat here, Babs, I wouldn't be able to speak to Pryor's regarding Chad's camera and helmet, but he said Babs been that Chad's had that for a couple seasons now, unless it recently changed.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it in previous races. Then again, we haven't had too many on boards with him, as Timothy Emmanuel back out in the lead as pit cycle works its way through. And with how the pit cycle has worked its way through, Scott Rankin will be the race leader when all of this is said and done. Scott Rankin now holds 2.5 seconds over Butch Davis and will be the genuine race leader. Timothy Emmanuel comes down pit road. And so Scott Rankin will, for the first time in this race, due to pit strategy, will take over the race lead. Now, granted, he came into pit 10 laps before Butch Davis did.
But look at this as well. Chris Amard has gotten to the back end of Butch Davis. He's within 0.4 of a second now. And that's because Samard pitted 4 laps sooner than Butch. That is beautiful play, knowing where those guys have come in the past, having an idea on where you think their fuel run will be. The same idea that Rankin's been implementing 10 laps ahead of Butch Davis. So you got to think, for 10 laps, he's been gaining almost a second on him each time, which has led him to now be about 1.5 seconds gap ahead of Butch Davis in the 43 car. Chris Amard has used that same strategy 4 laps ahead to now gain, 4 seconds to get to the back end of Butch Davis here?
Now, I understand that you have your pit strategy, you have your fuel number, and you want to stick to it. But with how much the undercut is meaning now, and by the way, Scott Rankin has now dropped quite significantly to Butch Davis. That gap that was 2 seconds is now 0.5 second in just those couple of laps. But if it comes down to it at the end, do you stay disciplined and stick with your number, even if it means possibly losing the race or having a big gap to overcome? Or do you try to take that undercut and try to mitigate some of the damage, especially if there is a pit stop that's going to come within the last 15 to 20 laps?
I don't think anybody's going to that close. We still have one more stop. If you watch the lead battle here between Butch and Scott really heat up, as you just see Scott kind of gives Butch Davis that inside, knowing he's got 10-lap older tires. But the other thing I've noticed, I'll kind of digress to points right now, focusing on this battle. Scott has been very good in lap traffic. The way he's got that car set right now, he was not afraid to let Butch by because Scott knows how well he does riding of other cars. Going back to the pit strategy side of it, I don't think anybody's going to be within 20 laps. We've seen guys go 50, anywhere from 44 to 57 laps. I think now is going to be of these lead guys. I don't think they're going to let Scott get away with pitting 10 laps before them. I just don't. You want to hit your number. You've got in your head, whether you've worked with your teammate or a crew chief of sorts, or you sitting yourself, you figure out how you want to run this race. And you set your numbers based on that. What I've seen Rankin do is very similar road course, and I like what he's done. Scott, from what I've put together so far, has run this race backwards. He knows what kind of fuel mileage he can get. He knows where he wants to be, and he's using that to pit ahead of everybody instead of going from the beginning of the race onward, where you say, I can go 55 laps on gas, so I'm going to pit lap anywhere between 53 to 56, if I can make 56, depending on how I'm running. 52 to 55, let's say. Scott's going, all right, I have to go 200 laps. I know we don't have white checkers to go past 200 laps. I can run 55 laps. Let me take 55 laps off of 200. That means I'm pitting somewhere around 145. Okay, that's going to give me one full fuel run to the end. Then what's another 55 off of that? Look right where he's at. 90 to 95. Right where Scott wants to be.
There you go.
So Scott has played this, in my mind, he played it beautifully. Chris Walker has done the same. Sadly, Chris kind of got off cycle, fell behind early, sitting in 10th place. He pitted lap 91, which tells me he did the same thing as Scott. I'm going to play this race backward, knowing that I'm going to have a long run at the end of it. I'm going to prepare myself, prepare my car to run well on worn tires and low. The other guys...
Who said racing isn't a thinking game?
Oh, I know. It's a chess.
Absolutely it is. As we see Chris Simard trying to battle. Now, Chris Simard has used that undercut, but he has not used it to the extreme that Scott Rankin has. Rankin, again, coming in 5 laps short of Butch Davis, as we'll see here. There's your top 5 and where they came into pit this time around. Only 4 laps difference between Davis and Simard. I would consider, at least if I were Butch Davis, I would consider Chris Simard a lot more dangerous a threat than I would consider Scott Rankin coming into this race.
See, I disagree with that. I think Scott's, the reason being, he's up 9 positions. He really offset the cycle early. Scott was I think he was the second guy to come in on lap 45. Mm-hmm. And he has maintained second position since that pit stop. And he has not Simard's gotten to his bumper. But Scott has not given Simard any way to get around him. To me, Butch Davis and Chris Simard have got to keep their eyes on when Scott comes in. Because if you can come in at the same time as Scott within a lap, you're going to minimize the advantage that he had. You're going to short pit the end versus long pitting, or versus a normal stretch run that Scott's going to plan. So Simard and Butch Davis are going to have to take less fuel to get to the same fuel number that Scott has to hit. So in that sense, I think Scott's going to be the key for guys come in. I think they're going to watch him, but I think Scott's the bigger target or the bigger player in this race because he has been so effective on old tires and maintaining track position.
Lap times are starting to equalize as well. Butch Davis, 2018 last time around. Scott Rankin at 2011. Now Davis did have a little bit of lap traffic to contend with. does a 20:38 this time around. Scott Rankin at 20:21. So that gap, those 10 lap more worn tires are starting to level out now. And it's starting to come down to who has made the better adjustments. And it looks, at least right now, that Rankin has done exactly that.
And that's why I said Rankin not afraid to let Butch go. Because Scott knew he had his car tuned exactly how he wanted to be around other cars, so racing in a draft, as well as being tuned for the long run. You know, let Butch go. You know he's not going to pull a 4 to 6 second gap like he's done previously. You have a 10-lap difference in tires. Scott has done everything he needed to do to stay. Now, 1.6, between 1.6 and 2 seconds of Butch Davis, easily within grasp, within another short pit, and he'll have the lead by by probably 2 to 3 seconds over Butch Davis if he performs the short pit successfully.
Davis a little bit quicker than Rankin. Davis and Samard running nearly identical lap times that last time around. As this time it's Rankin who's the quickest of the three at a 20:16. We just had our closest incident to a caution here tonight. Joe Brickey battling with Kevin O'Brien in the 84. And my camera not liking it apparently. Or maybe not, as Kevin O'Brien just... oh no, O'Brien, that was earlier. Let's see, this is O'Brien going around Lyle Swearingen here. We're trying to go around Lyle Swearingen. That's Mark McFadden around there as well. As O'Brien trying to see what happened here, because we saw O'Brien jump to the pits and maybe just had his connection completely drop on him.
Yeah, I think that was a connection issue more than anything.
He's back out now. So Kevin O'Brien back out on track and rolling, currently running in the 18th position. Tim Bates has pulled it off. He has said no mas. Ronnie Osmer, the other DNF here tonight. Carl Burke did not start the race. Chad Simpson battling with Connor Nixon now behind him. Connor Nixon in the white and purple, number 96.
Who it? Aha, I knew it. Chris Walker.
Coming down pit road. Here he comes.
Came over. Yep. Chris Walker is now on pit road. Like I said, ran the race backwards. Knows he can get about 45. He's going to have to go 50.
He's going to have to go 60 laps here.
Yeah, that might be a little too long.
62 laps Chris Walker's going to have to go here on this last set.
Through all that, Samard has gotten ahead of Rankin now. But we expect, if my numbers were right, my Larry McNuggets timing and such were right, Scott's coming about 6 laps.
Here, by the way,
I'm going to say he's going to go a little further than 145.
Here, by the way, is the pass. Chris Samard on Scott Rankin for second, behind Butch Davis. Chris Walker is down and away, getting towards the final pit stop here in this race. Still not a caution to be found. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. You are watching the Sim Racer's Edge Sim Motion 200, the beginning of the second half of the season from Phoenix. We'll be back right after this.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, You will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers, including Peter Berryman, John Robertson, Brandon Trano, and IndyCar World Champion Alex Palou. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Are you new to sim racing, or maybe a veteran struggling to reach the next level? Have you ever wondered how the aliens reach impressive lap times that seem impossible to achieve? If so, you're not alone. Most drivers reach a certain level and get stuck. But getting faster on track is easier than you think. VRS coaches are some of the best sim racers in the world and offer one-on-one driver skills training at affordable rates to help new drivers learn the basics and help experienced drivers break through to the next level. Are you ready to get faster and get off the iRacing roller coaster? If so, VRS one-on-one personal training is for you. If you've invested in your equipment, it might be time to invest in yourself. Just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a 30, 60 or 90-minute session with one of our world-class coaches, and you'll learn exactly what to do for faster lap times and more podiums.
Pit strategy playing out here at Phoenix. We just saw both Chris Simard and Scott Rankin come down pit road. A couple of laps later, Butch Davis answers the call. Bentley Glazer coming down pit road as well. That leaves Chad Simpson with the lead for the first time tonight. That 42 out in front. How much longer will he go as Jake Walsh now slots into the second position?
Yeah, I was listening to the in-chat radio, and Chris Simard keyed up, said pitting now. He said it at the last possible second. He immediately, as he said that, Rankin keyed up that he was coming in as well and slammed on the binders coming in. That could be the move of the race by Simard to stay ahead of Scott on that pit cycle. He's now sitting 1.4 ahead of Scott Rankin, only a second back of Butch Davis closing.
Butch Davis did not let those guys come in a lot further than he had earlier on. Davis came into pit. Simard is behind him, but only by about a second. Chad Simpson in pit road now. Jake Walsh, now your current race leader. Dan Brazington, Timothy Emmanuel, your top three. Those three have not come back in for their third stop yet. Now Jake Walsh will come in. This should give the race lead over to Dan Brazington, barring a pit stop. And Brazington does not look like he will be coming down pit road this time, so Brazington will inherit the lead. and lead this lap. Timothy Emmanuel about to get passed on track by Butch Davis for third, and will be.
This is really heating up to be a fun battle, Frank. I'm loving what I'm seeing out of these guys, because as we talk, that battle between Mart and Butch Davis was what, about 2.5 seconds?
Yep.
We're talking 6/10 and closing.
Butch Davis in the lead as Dan Brazington comes down pit road now, and as I had mentioned, I'd be a lot more concerned about Chris Simard if I were Butch Davis, and exactly what has happened here. Simard won this race the last time these guys came here back in season 3. The race here at season 3 would have happened back on September 22nd of 2021. Just 3 cautions at a total race time of 1 hour and 14 minutes for 186 laps here. The first race, won by Nate Siefker. Simard did not lead a lap, an hour and 48 minutes to complete that race, 14 cautions in a race that was held back on November 11th of 2020.
Yeah, I was expecting Scott to pull in a few laps. As we were talking during that commercial break, Scott Rankin, lap 145, 146 came around, and Scott kept going. So you and I were chatting. Scott made a liar out of me. Yeah.
You get used to that sort of thing. Scott Rankin now currently holds third. Bentley Glazer sitting in fourth right now. Glazer had gotten around Chad Simpson prior to the pit stops, and now currently sits 6.2 seconds ahead of the 42 of Chad Simpson. Glazer, again, only came in 2 laps before Simpson did. So whether or not something happened to that 42 on track or not, here's a battle for position. Jake Walsh and Jeffrey Roulette, these two battling for 7th on track right now. Closest battle on track as that lead has stayed pretty securely around 6/7 of a second.
Yeah, that's a great one, but man, I'll tell you what, Bentley Glazer has come up from nowhere. He's now closed. He's 2/10 behind Scott Rankin. He is all over his tail. I don't know if there was an adjustment that Scott didn't make, but you called it. As they were coming into pits during commercial, Bentley Glazer flew past both Simard and Rankin as they came into the pits. Look at how low Bentley goes there. Beautifully done.
Bentley Glazer did not come down pit road. Or, what was I about to... Oh, he did not qualify, pardon me. That's where I was going with that. Did not qualify, started in 18th, and has worked his way up masterfully to get into a podium position. This is the same Bentley Glazer who won the Western States Racing League Truck Series Championship 3 seasons in a row. Also became the first driver to win the double, the Tuesday Night Truck Championship and the Friday Night Cup Championship in the same season. Something that had not been done in that series for 7 seasons.
That's remarkable.
So Bentley Glazer has been flying ever since he got on the ESBN/SRM airwaves.
And he's shown speed here this season so far. He's done a great job. He's just had some bad luck at a couple races that have put him out of contention for win. But he's been up here with the likes of Simard, Siefker, Butch Davis, Simpson. He's been up there racing with those guys. So Bentley has done a fantastic job here tonight. Like you said, using pit stops to his advantage, setting his car up well for the long run. And he's in a position right now, still about 2/10 behind Scott Rankin, but he's hounding on that podium door.
Bentley Glazer has finished in the top 5 in every single race this season except for one, Interlagos. 5th at Auto Club, 3rd at Kentucky and Richmond, 5th at Watkins Glen, 2nd at Charlotte, 9th at Interlagos, and 5th last week at Atlanta.
Yeah, he's been doing real well now.
And that's
as
still
we look,
only good for third in points.
That just tells you how good this league is. That is, you have to be perfect week in, week out. And Bentley Glazer's been one of those guys. Butch Davis has been up there. He's had some rough luck as well. But the likes of Simpson and Siefker right now, those two have just been some of the best that we've seen so far this season, proving why they were so good last year and why Siefker won the title last season. But I'll tell you what, man, Scott Rankin has done a heck of a job. I know he missed a few races, so he's back there in points, but if he can keep up the kind of runs that he's been doing now, he's absolutely going to put himself in a top 5 position, I'll say.
Now we're sitting here talking about the Davis Simard battle and the Rankin Glazer battle. They're only 2 seconds apart from each other. There is first and second. There's 0.6 separating these two. Then you go back 1.8 seconds back to this battle here between Scott Rankin and Bentley Glazer. So if something happens up front between these two are not impervious to falling below second. They do have to keep their head up, especially if they start battling here. That two-way battle could turn into a four-way battle very quickly as we inch closer to 25 to go.
Yeah, all it's going to take is Butch Davis and Simard getting side by side for a lap or two, and Rankin and Glazer are going to be all over their taillights.
This has been Butch Davis's race to lose. He has led more laps here today than either guy who has led the most laps at the 2 Phoenix races combined.
Yeah, he's done so well as we look at just the battle right now between Glazer and Rankin. These guys have just been, I've been watching Bentley just slowly sitting right there waiting for Scott to have a little, whoops, that's all it's going to take. As you saw right there, he's closed in about 0.1 of a second. It looks like Scott's beating him in 3 and 4, but Bentley closes right back in turns 1 and 2.
It's the lap time history between the two. Times in red are times that Rankin was quicker. Times in green are times Glazer was quicker. This last 3 laps, that 4 has been just ever so quicker. Not by much, but Glazer has been quicker than Scott Rankin on each of the last 3 laps. Make it each, oh no, that was Rankin there. Rankin by about 1/10 and a quarter.
Yeah, Bentley had a little bit of trouble there. It looked like coming off at turn 4. So Scott was able to kind of pace going right now. We got 20 laps to go from this thing is winding down quickly. And like we said, this battle can easily be a 4-way fight if Simard gets to Davis's bumper.
It's become 1.6 seconds now as Simard has fallen to 0.8 of a second behind. Lap completed. We'll see. These two are trading faster laps. This time it was Davis that was quicker. And again, this truly has been Butch Davis's race to lose at this point. Led so many laps at Atlanta last week to come up 2/100ths of a second short. He's had multiple opportunities this season. He's only cashed in on one of them. That was at Charlotte just before the week off. He has been nothing short of electric here tonight.
No, he has. And he's been, like we said, it's been a couple bad instances that have taken Butch out of contention to win some of the last few races. But he's shown some speed, both at the road courses and at the ovals. It doesn't matter whether it was Auto Club, whatever. Butch Davis has been a contender. Simard has been up there as well. Bentley Glazer's been running fast. Chad Simpson's been there. So it's not a surprise to see these names up there. I'll say Scott's the only quote-unquote surprise name because we haven't seen him all season long. But if Scott was able to be here running with the rest of these guys, as Bentley had a huge moment coming out of turn 2. Scott nearly hit the wall.
Scott Rankin also having to fight with the lap down car of Timothy Emmanuel. Also a very good points day upcoming for Butch Davis with this. Chad Simpson currently running in the 5th position. How about this one? 8th race of the season, the first race of the second half. This is going to be his lowest finish. He's finished 4th twice, 3rd twice, and won 3 races in the first half of the season. 5th position is going to be his lowest finish of the year.
It is. It's not over yet, though, but he's sitting comfortably right now in 5th. You know, he's got 7 seconds ahead to Bentley. He's got 4.5 or so back to Connor Nixon. Chad just needs to keep turning laps, take a top 5 out of this, because no offense, Chad, you know, he's shown his dominance so far this year, but this has been a Butch Davis clinic on how to run this track.
This has been the Davis show, but wait a minute. Before we start rolling credits, Chris Simard is now starting to turn it on here. He had fallen to as far as 9/10 of a second back just a couple of laps ago. He's now closed that to a half a second. This is the closest these two have been this entire stint.
And I'll tell you what I'm loving from Simard is that upper line. We talked about it earlier on that Lyle was running. Butch has been kind of running the middle to lower lanes in 1 and 2. Look at the run that Simard gets out of 1 and 2 and how much speed he's going to carry here. He loses a little bit on entry, but he knows he makes up that 10th plus as they go down that backstretch into 3 and 4. That was a beautiful job by Simard. He kind of held there, both guys running at the same time at a 20.12 and a 20.14. So Butch saw and corrected whatever had happened to him. He's not going to give Simard many options to get to that rear bumper.
It's going to take a while for Simard to get to him. However, it's also going to take a while for Simard to get the pass. Now, with this also coming closer, Scott Rankin has pulled within a second of Chris Simard. So
yeah,
we
Bentley
now have a battle for the top 3 as Bentley Glazer has completely fallen off the face of the earth now.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and take a look to see if I can see what might have happened with Bentley Glazer. I don't know if he
must have caught the wall, because he is now 3.5 seconds behind Scott Rankin. In an aero-dependent track like this, if you hit the wall, you have a major problem on your hands as Butch Davis gets around his teammate Lyle Swearingen. Swearingen doesn't make it too easy or too hard for Chris Simard.
Well, what I saw, Bentley Glazer had a little bit of trouble when he came out of 2 side by side with Kevin O'Brien, and that just kind of took Bentley out of the draft of Scott Rankin there, and that's kind of had him fall off so much. So he hasn't touched the wall. It just looked like he kind of caught the lap car at the wrong time, and that's hurt him now as he's 4 seconds back from Rankin. But this battle up front, I'm telling you, man, if Simard and Davis get side by side in these last 5 laps, Scott Rankin right there.
I just saw a big problem. We're going to jump on board with Butch Davis. There is a wad of lap traffic that these guys are going to catch here in the final 4 laps of this race.
It's not over, folks. Don't you dare touch that TV dial, because this is going to get interesting real quick.
And Rankin is closer now to Simard than Simard is to Davis. Davis is 0.7 of a second clear on Simard. Rankin a half a second clear. Simard half a second clear on Rankin.
Scott Rankin pulled 0.2 of a second on Butch Davis, pulled another 1/10 on Simard. I'm telling you what, we talked about it before, how good Scott's car was in traffic. Look at Butch Davis. This is going to be a big fight for him. He's got to get those lap cars out of his way.
Boy, 2 laps to go. Boy, Dan Inch not giving him any room on that inside. That allows Chris Simard to get within 0.3. Simard getting close to Dan Inch as well. White flag coming out here.
White flag's coming this time, like you said, Frank. Simard had a little bit of trouble. He's within 0.2, though. He's going to dive it down onto the apron. He's going to have a good shot.
Davis gets to the bottom. Davis gets to the bottom of Dixon. Lap cars side by side. Davis Pulling off the inside line, Samard looks to the outside. Coming through 3 and 4, it's going to be Butch Davis taking the win here at the SimMotion 200.
What a race. What a finish. Samard did everything he could. He got to the outside of Butch Davis going into 3. Wasn't able to carry as much speed. Butch did a fantastic job down on that bottom line. He was able to get the run off. Butch Davis is going to take the win here tonight. Samard second, Rankin third. Bentley Glazer rounds out in 4th place. Chad Simpson, 5th place, his worst finish of the year, like you said, Frank.
He was so good all night long, and then to lose it to lap cars would have been devastating. But Davis, fortunately, only had to put the defense on for 1 corner, and he did it masterfully to take his 2nd win of the season. Still only 3 unique winners on the season, but a very good points day and a well-deserved result for that number 43 here tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely brilliant. That was, like we said it before, Butch Davis put on a training class tonight for these guys and how they needed to run. Samard almost had him. If Samard had 1 more lap, and how many times have we as racers said, if I had 1 more lap, 1 more corner, 1 more time, I would have had him. And I love what Butch is doing here.
Yep.
I love that Phoenix and iRacing put this in place. Butch Davis, if you're not watching him now, Frank, are we going to him first? Or do we
are going to be going to him first. Greg, you are with our race winner.
Frank, I'm down here in victory lane with the driver of the 43 ST car, Butch Davis. You put on a clinic tonight.
Yeah, definitely not expected. Kind of had a rough day before we even got to the track, and working on very, very little sleep. Did not have confidence in qualifying. But legit, got to give credit to my teammates. I had made an adjustment that I shouldn't have made, and they kind of corrected me on that. And, once I made that adjustment, it was kind of clicking again. I got the pole, and we knew from practice it would be difficult to pass here, but it was still possible. And it was just work the fuel strategy and do what I can not to throw this one away.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see broadcast the race last week. We know you had a rough one in Atlanta. We're going to stay away from that. But, man, when you saw those lap cars with 5 to go, I got to ask, how worried were you?
Oh, my eyes were as big as clocks, man. Just coming down that late. Samard's a phenomenal driver, as is Rankin. They've both proven to be exceptional behind the wheel. And I knew any kind of delay would put Samard right in my back pocket and possibly even Rankin. And it was just do what I could to keep as much of my momentum up as possible. Had a minor little run-in with Dan Inch there on the next to last lap or whatever it was. Just a little bit late on the communication between us both. And that really, really gave Samard a run. And then it was just kind of trying to play a little bit of defense for that last half a lap. And thankfully held on to it.
Absolutely, man. You did a heck of a job here tonight. Like we said, we saw you and a lot of other guys running this race from beginning to end on the fuel strategy, I'll call it, versus some of the guys like I thought Scott Rankin and Chris Walker were doing of running the race backward. I guess the question is, did you guys plan this race to go green all night long, or was this kind of an anomaly that you guys weren't expecting?
We kind of want green flag racing, but there's no way we expected this thing to green the whole way. I was just basically, once out front, kind of saw that we were able, Lyle and myself were able to gap 3rd place, Chad, and then eventually when Samard got around him and Rankin, I think as well, kind of able to gap them a little bit. We started dialing back the fuel. and we were able to maintain a gap while still making good fuel numbers. And the idea was to push the first stop as late as possible to set yourself up for a better position, a quicker stop later in the race. I think the next to last stop, Rankin was able to leapfrog me into the lead, and it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't overly concerning. I ran him down relatively quickly. I knew where he pitted at. He definitely needed to save to make it one more stop. So took that into account, just kind of worked those numbers in my head and was able to push forward. And yeah, it's, we don't necessarily like fuel races, but sometimes that's how it plays out. And I don't really think that was a factor tonight, but it was definitely on our minds.
Absolutely, Butch. I'm just getting an update here. You led 183 of the 200 laps here tonight. Last question for you, man. How did this car feel for you? We heard a lot of talk coming in of guys struggling with the right front tire and tire fall off. But it seems like you guys had some late adjustments to the setup that really seemed to help it. But how was this car overall?
The car wasn't bad. Yeah, the right front does take a bit of a beating, like that last run to the checkers. And I haven't done any burnouts or anything. My right rear was still at 90%, but the right front's at 75. This place is very heavy and hard on the right front. The only way that you can really kind of help that is to run the car looser or lift on corner entry. And I adjusted a little bit to lifting on corner entry. It allowed me to get down to the bottom of the flat corner. Don't ask me corner numbers. They reconfigured this place, I'm lost. But yeah, that lift going into that corner, I think really helped me be able to hook that bottom line as well as help preserve that right front a little bit more and maybe help save some of that fuel I needed.
Well, Butch, you were the king of Phoenix here tonight, man. Who do you have to thank for this performance before we let you go?
Definitely want to thank all my teammates at FBR Motorsports. The guys that run with us. It's Chad, Lyle, Dan Brazington, and Jeffrey Roulette. Thank the guys with FBR that aren't here tonight, like Justin Wilkinson, Larry Edmis, and Neil Messer. Thank you guys up in the booth. Thank our sponsors, SimMotion via Darren Ganji, and thank Virtual Racing School, for helping us put this all on. Thanks to anybody that tunes in and enjoys watching us rip around these racetracks at 200 plus miles an hour.
Well, Butch, you certainly showed them how to get it done tonight here in Phoenix. Congratulations again on your win, man. Great job, and we're going to see you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Hopefully this closes the points up a little bit.
Frank, go ahead.
It certainly did close up the points, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But right now, we'll talk to our second place finisher here tonight, Chris Simard. Chris, a very solid race for you. Looking for those back-to-back wins here at Phoenix. My goodness, and unfortunately came up 0.2 short.
Yeah, I was kind of a little down on myself for qualifying and then getting stuck there at the start. So I'm glad I got by. Well, the biggest guy getting by was Chad there, and then I was off to the races trying to catch up to Butch and Scott there, and it was fun. I'm beat though. It was fun but tiring. So.
It certainly looked like quite an eventful race here tonight. As far as not being able to catch a break, what is it like being able to run 200 laps here nonstop?
Oh, it's okay when you're by yourself. There's no cars around you, but when you're in a pack, you're working the air, you're working the dirty air, and it's tough on you, especially some of the guys have a lot of strength in the force feedback, so that makes it tough a little bit. But it's just you just got to prepare mentally, I guess. And I don't know. I'm not anywhere near physically capable of doing this for the real thing, but at least I could do the 200 laps on the sim. So.
How wide did your eyes get when you saw that big pack of lap cars coming and you knew you were going to catch them before the end of the race?
Oh, I thought that was my only chance. I know Butch was struggling. He was going by, was it 2 laps ago? He went by Dan. Dan kind of called out where he was going, like last minute, and I knew that was kind of my chance to get Butch. And I got on his outside, but I couldn't do it in the third or fourth corner. But it was that was my only shot. He was fast. I could keep up with him for the most part, but he was pretty fast. I think he was sandbagging a little bit at the end. Maybe he didn't have enough. Maybe he was just saving fuel or whatnot. But who knows? But it was fun. So sorry.
No, you're good. We head next week to the Indianapolis Road Course. What are your thoughts going for leg 1 of our 2 consecutive weeks at Indy?
If I could stay on the track, that would be awesome. I don't do well on road courses, as you could tell. I've wrecked my race a bunch of times, so it's I just need to stay on the track, race the track, stay on it. I can't get off the track. Even if cars pass me, I just need to stay on the track, and I'll get a good finish. It's really tough on the road courses for me for some reason. I don't know why. It's not my strong suit. So
sometimes everyone has their bugaboo. Anyone else you want to thank before we let you go?
I'd just like to thank you guys in the booth. I'm definitely going back to watching this race. This was awesome. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, SimMotion, Virtual Racing School, Darren Garngy. There's a bunch of others that I'm forgetting, of course. I'm sorry about that. But my teammate, Timmy Emanuele, and Nick Starling, even though he wasn't here tonight, but and my wife and son. So.
All right, Chris, don't hang your head too low. Great second place finish here tonight. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited, but I don't really show it very much, but I am excited. So.
All right, congratulations, bud.
Thank you.
And Greg, that will now leave Scott Rankin with you.
Scott, Greg McConey up in the SRM booth, man. How you doing?
Oh man, what a race! Oh, my biceps and my wrists are absolutely knackered. That thing was so heavy around the track tonight.
Scott, I'll be honest. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but after I saw you pull that early pit stop, and I saw you hold the position, man, you kind of had my vote a little bit there. I think Frank can kind of attest to that. I was cheering you on. I thought you, and you did. You showed them. You had a beautiful long run car. You were able to hold pace with a lot of those guys, even with those short stops. My first question for you, man, did you plan to run this race backwards like it looked like you were doing?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I knew we could do about 50 laps on the stint, and that first pit was a huge gamble. I wasn't confident on anything. The only reason that made me pull the trigger was I saw a wall of perhaps 4 lapped cars and 3 cars for position. There was just so much dirty air. We were going to drop 7, 8 tenths a lap, and that was going to be race over. Let alone, I wasn't making any overtakes. Overtakes were so difficult to make all night long because of the dirty air, because of the nature of the track. But that's Phoenix. You've got to come up with a strategy to deal with that. But it was the traffic that made me pull the trigger. Probably, in hindsight, probably a lap, maybe 2 laps later, and I win tonight. But, it comes back to qualifying. I messed up qualifying so bad. So, when you go 11th to 3rd at Phoenix in a field like this, you sit back and go, that should have been a win. That really should have been a win. I'm actually kind of disappointed, which, you sit on a podium and you go, you're disappointed? Yeah, I'm disappointed because that's 1 lap in qualifying is what cost me a win tonight.
Well, Scott, even though you may be disappointed, you put on a heck of a show here. with both you and Butch Davis, Chris Samard, you guys did so well. Along with the others, Bentley Glazer was up there. Lyle was there for a while. How was this car handling for you? We heard a lot of guys coming in complaining on this right front and how much abuse it was seeing. It seems like there was a late, I'll call it a late adjustment within the last few days to the track conditions and the setup itself that seemed to have helped. But what was this car doing for you, and how were you able to run so well on these long runs?
Bars, throttle management, race management. Look for that free lane of air. You can't follow these guys. It's just too much load. And I've had a couple of the Aussie guys underneath my wing that I've been teaching them, and that's the biggest thing is get your nose free. We ran a New Zealand IndyCar series, the New Zealand IndyCar Championships on Sunday night, and it was at Texas. And I just said to the guys, look, you've got to get that nose free. I ran into some early chaos and I had to go to the back, and they were like, oh, we can't overtake, you can't overtake, you can't overtake. And all of a sudden, 10 laps later, I'm back at the front again, cutting through 18 cars or something it was. So, it's about understanding the car, understanding what you can do with it. Tonight, Connor and I did such a big job in terms of working through the setup, working through different bar combinations. I've already spoken to Chris. He was going completely different direction with the bars. He was looking for a lot of turn in, and he was running a lot of weight jacker. We were going in the opposite direction. I was actually a lot more concerned about right rear tire heat. The wear on the right rear tire was fine, but it was all the tire heat. So, and then trying to manage that through the middle of the run. And just making minute little bits and pieces of adjustments. Whereas those guys, they took some pretty big swings at their cars. Whereas we were just about just get it close and then drive through it is going to be the better way. But I think that race tonight sort of says who I am as a driver. I'm known for looking after my tires quite well. I'm the I hate to pick up like guys like this, but like the Perez kind of style of driver, Sergio Perez from Formula One. I'm really good at looking after my tires. Like that's just my speciality. So any of these long green flag runs, they're really going to suit me.
Well, you certainly showed it tonight, man. Even when you had the older tires versus those other leaders, you just were able to hold position so well. Who do you have to thank for tonight's third place finish?
I want to say a big shout out to the entirety of the Australian IndyCar community and the league that I actually race out of down there, which is Sim Racing World. I've had a rough couple of weeks, really rough couple of days in terms of my mental health, and there's so much support creeping around from that league. I really cannot say enough about it. From Nathan Howard down there, the guys that run the league, Steve Sinkovich is so crucial, just giving me the confidence. My teammates in TCR out there is Brad Wall. Connor, man, that guy is going to be pumped up to race IndyCars again. I was having a little bit of a break, wasn't feeling great about running the IndyCars, but he did such a good job tonight. When he had some health issues late in the race as well, he managed his fuel well. And then to the sponsors, I want to say a big shout out to DSL Welding Services and Warren & Brown Tools. Dragon RC, Toyo Sim, Racecraft Simulations, and there's one that I've missed. Melville Equipment Corporation's the other one. So, there's a huge round of support. I'm one of the only Australian guys that's actually competing internationally in terms of the IndyCar, and that takes a lot of support, and big shout out to all of those guys.
Well, Scott, a third place finish here tonight is definitely something to go hang your hat on. You had a great race, man. Congratulations again on your third place run, and we're going to see you next week, man.
Yeehaw!
So there was your third place finisher here tonight, Scott Rankin. And Greg, one heck of a race here tonight. Who would have thought that the first caution-free race of the season that was not on a road course would be at Phoenix?
Yeah, I'll say put me in that boat. I did not expect this race to go green flag. You and I kind of talked about it a little bit in some of the commercials. This race flew, Frank. This was remarkable how fast this race went by. These guys were turning 20-second lap averages, and 200 laps here for these guys seemed like a cakewalk with what they were all able to do. So that just shows the skill of the drivers in this league, and how much more great racing we're going to see going forward when we get to a lot more of the, I call them competitive side-by-side multi-groove tracks here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we begin the Indy Double next week. We have the Indianapolis Road Course, the new Indianapolis Road Course coming up next week after the rescan. Then it will be the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will be the site of round number 10 of the season with the fifth annual Indianapolis quote unquote 500. It'll be 100 laps. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association, ALZ.org. Then it'll be the Milwaukee Mile before we get the Thanksgiving week off. Then it'll be Sebring, Vegas, and Pocono the rest of the way. 6 more races to go. It's flown by here so far this season. I'm actually going to be quite upset when this season ends if we're going to keep getting this type of racing.
I'm with you, man. If we're going to miss out on this, when this season's done, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, while I'm waiting for, I'll still have IES, but while I'm waiting for Thunderclap to get kicked up again, it's going to be lonely missing out on watching these guys race.
Now, we're going to do something I think we've never done on the channel before, and we are actually going to update you on the points post-race here tonight. After the result here tonight, Butch Davis has cut that lead in the points of Chad Simpson's down to 12 heading into Indianapolis next week. Bentley Glazer a further 30 points behind Butch Davis, Dan Brazington, Chris Samard, Nate Siefker falling down to 6th after this. A very big run from Scott Rankin. Again, another third place finish. He's already up 4. He's already up into the top 15 in points thus far this season. So for the first time ever, we're actually updating the points, not before the race, but actually after the race here tonight. That's quite a nice little deal, and thank you very much to Sim Racer's Edge for putting the results up so quick, and Sim Racer Hub being able to giving us the opportunity to be able to do this. As we'll now take a look at the updated team championship, and as of right now, FBR 269 to Voodoo Racing's 168. This is a runaway in the team's championship so far.
Yeah, it really is. But like you said, we're only halfway through the season. A lot can change, but those FBR Motorsports guys are going to be a tough group to beat.
They've won all but 3 races thus far this season, and Nate Siefker has won the other 3. We'll take a look at the results now for tonight's race. Butch Davis takes home the race win, his second of the season. Chris Samard, Scott Rankin, we've heard from them. Rounding out the podium positions, Chad Simpson and Bentley Glazer rounding out the top 5. Connor Nixon, Jake Walsh, Jeffrey Roulette, Dan Brazington, and Timothy Emmanuel coming home in the top 10. Paul Crumry rounds out the top half of the field.
Dan Inge comes home in 12th. Mark McFadden comes home in 13th place here tonight. We didn't get to talk about Mark much, but he had a great race. Finished 4 laps down in 13th. Ernie Ludwig also 4 laps down.
Too, pardon me.
Yeah, with a major hand injury. So kudos to Mark for fighting through that and coming home with a good finish. Ernie Ludwig, like I said, comes home 14th, also 4 laps down. Chris Walker in 15th, Lyle Swearingen 16th. Joe Brickey 17th, 18th goes to Kevin O'Brien, followed by Timothy Bates in 19th after disconnecting early. He finishes 112 laps down. Ronnie Osmer, after disconnecting as well, finishes in 20th, the last car to take the green flag tonight. Carl Burke rounds out the field in 21st after a DNS.
And so that will do it for us here tonight on Sim Racing Media. Thank you to everyone who checked us out here tonight, not just on the Sim Racing Media YouTube side, but also on the VRS Facebook and Twitch channels. We saw a lot of people watching on VRS for the first time. Actually, it's quite a nice size crowd on that VRS Twitch stream. So we thank you very much for that. Coming up tomorrow will be the Monsters of Speed New Gen Cup Series. They will run round 11 of the series at Atlanta at 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. The first race of the night, however, Greg, you will be in action tomorrow night for the Circle B Diecast Super Speedway Series round number 8 at Daytona, an 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time start in the 1987 cars. So a throwback race for tomorrow night, round number 8 of the Circle B Diecast Super Speedway season. So for my broadcast partner, Greg McConey, I am Frank Marchese. Thank you very much. Next week, we will begin the first end of the Indy Double at the Indianapolis Road Course. We will see you then. Good night, everybody.